So, basically,
Spreadsheets.
yes.
Woo!
So I have this spreadsheet. I'm actually gonna I'm gonna share a link to it.
Crowns in the chat for spreadsheets, please.
I'm gonna share the link right now. You should be able to view it with that link.
And you can make a copy of it and mess with it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I actually didn't do any VLOOKUP stuff in this one. This is just to calculate stuff, and you'll understand in a moment how it works. It's pretty simple, but like it took a little while because I had to break it down. But for those of you at home, everything that is in a slight tan highlight, this color right here, that stuff is all editable. Everything else that isn't is will give you a warning if you try to edit it. And this sheet is importantly 3 pages. It's 3 tabs. It is the calculator, the conservative budget sheet, and the higher budget sheet. I couldn't think of a more I didn't want to say conservative and liberal, even though those are technically the correct terms. So the reason why this exists in the way that it does is that
I'm sorry, just a second. You can make a copy of this into your own Google Drive, and then you can edit it to your heart's content.
Yeah, you should not be able to edit this one. You should be able to copy it and make your own. But I'm just explaining how it works. So, okay, and 15K. I don't know where you got that. It was probably I just put in random numbers for this, and I'm going to go through a couple of examples.
With breadsticks, you can make a game for $0 if it's
yeah, you can absolutely do that. So I'm gonna do a couple of examples, and I'm gonna break down sort of the way that this works. It's of course not perfect. It's not like a flawless system, but I think it's pretty comprehensive, and it will at least give you the thought experiments necessary to like move forward. Now that said, the way that it works is that, like I said, there's 3 pages. There's the basic calculator page. This is where you put in a lot of the hard data, and you sort of fuss with it in order to make it work. And then there are 2 sheets that are basically identical, the budget sheet conservative and the budget sheet higher. They both have the exact same fields on them. The only difference is that we have 2 versions of the budget. We have the conservative rate and the higher rate. And this is, and the reason why, there's actually 2 reasons why. The first is that one of the most common things that people do with like Kickstarters and crowdfunding goals is that they multiply creative pay. So like you might have someone getting more money for writing or for art or whatever if we hit a certain benchmark on the Kickstarter. The other way to look at this is that you can look at and compare and contrast the numbers for a bare bones, like this is the absolute minimum I can get away with paying, versus a little bit more comfortable. And the idea would be that you should be able to compare these and be able to tell whether or not they are realistic and what it would take to make them, yeah, of course, Duam, to make them viable. And there's a little bit more, I'll get into the nitty gritty of it, but it's a little bit more complicated than that once you get into the sort of the nuts and bolts of it. But this should be a pretty good basis. So I broke down the calculator here into a couple of sections, actually 4 sections. We have the writing budget, we have the art and design budget, the production budget, and the ad budget. And then here's a little bit of room to play with the MSRPs, and it actually has the data necessary for, like, this has got all of the base rates for all of the major sites that I use. So drive-through, itch, Kickstarter, IPR, and direct sale.
What's an MSRP?
MSRP is manufacturer suggested retail price. That's the price you put on the book. You say the book is this much. This is not counting things like sales. Sales are its own thing, and I actually have multiple MSRP fields here so you can play around with that a little.
Okay.
The real idea of the MSRP calculator, though, this is a thing that I have been doing a lot of work on lately. It's a thing that I had to fight myself with on iHunt, is like finding the right sort of sweet spot with price and like sales expectations and things like that in order to justify your budget.
Mom says I like how the exclusive is not even an option.
Well, okay, so that is true. I did put the non-exclusive rate in there only. You could technically put in drive-thru's exclusive rate if you really wanted to, but I would not advise anyone do that. If you can make 5% of your sales in itch, then you have no reason to go through drive-thru as an exclusive vendor. So that's saying for every 10 copies, or sorry, for every 20 copies you sell on drive-thru, if you can sell 1 copy on itch, you have invalidated drive-thru's exclusive bonus.
Right.
And anyone, if you are selling games, you can sell 5% on itch. So there is absolutely no reason to ever go exclusive with drive-thru. I would not do it. I would not advise it to anyone.
Please always divest your games or any creative project you have. Please have it available in different places. Please fight monopolies.
Please. And also, like, think about it like this. If you're exclusive on drive-thru, and so that means that you have, if you decide that you want to sell on any other store, you have to give them a 6-month lead time. So if it's January, or it's February now, if I wanted if I was exclusive on drive-thru and I wanted to sell on itch, I would have to wait until August. I would have to tell them now, and I would have to wait until August. So, hypothetically, say some group of neo-Nazis decides that they're going to mass report me on drive-thru. They're going to find a piece of, like, sexual content that, you know, if it was a D&D book, it would be okay, but they're going to mass report me for that and say that it's, like, abusive or whatever. And that will get me pulled from drive-thru RPG. I can appeal it and fight it, and sometimes in those cases you get your account back, but if you don't, then you're fucked. And also, in the meantime, while you're fighting it, you're fucked. So do not go exclusive unless you have a really good reason that I cannot imagine right now. Don't do it.
You work for them.
Yeah, if you work for them and they're going to fight for you and they're going to basically invest in you, then do it. If you're a big publisher like an Onyx Path or whatever, they do exclusive deals, and that's because they get a much better rate. They aren't paying the same rate that I would pay if I were exclusive through drive-thru. But those people aren't coming to me for advice, so it doesn't matter. If you're listening, they had their chance. So if you are listening to this stream, if you're looking at this calculator, do not go exclusive. Just don't fucking do it. You are only hurting yourself and the industry at large.
Yeah.
You are doing nobody any favors. Okay. Anyway, that was a little tangent. So, writing budget calculator, art and design, production, and advertising. These are the basic things that are going to go into your pricing. Like this is the basic things that you need to consider in order to get past. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the things that I put into the writing budget are writing, editing, development, proofreading, consultation, and then additional costs. Most books don't need all of these things. I'm going to actually break this down without consultation, because not every book needs consultation.
But if yours does...
there's a place for it. Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to put in additional writing costs because that's unexpected stuff. Like, that's stuff that is unique to your project. Like, do you need to go to a location and write about a specific place? Like, that's a part of your budget. If you need to be on site for something, that's it. Like, if you need to take a little work vacation, put it in there. It's part of your budget. Budget for it. Period. Consultation in this case is per word, because usually consultation is going to be like sensitivity reading. Like I'm writing about a group of natives and I want a Native American to read over it and make for sure that I haven't done any glaring stupids.
Yeah.
So that's how I would do it. And I would say that typically whenever you're doing consultation, you don't need them to read the entire book. So you just get the chunk that they need to read, and then you bill them, or you let them invoice you for that. Agreed upon amount or whatever. Usually, in my experience, it's about the same as proofreading. Some people ask for more, some people ask for less. It's a real, like, sort of Wild West area. Okay.
But I'm just going to toss this out here. If you're building a budget like this and you're doing it specifically for like a Kickstarter, and you're doing anything that's outside of your lane, so to speak, make sure that that money is budgeted in there from the get-go.
Yeah.
Don't have it be an add-on. I see that happens a lot where it's like, well, I might be covering something that's a little bit racist, but that's a stretch goal. Hiring somebody to tell me if this is racist is a stretch goal.
Yeah.
It's probably not a great plan.
And it's really bad for optics, because it means that it's an afterthought.
But what's good for optics is having it right there in the budget from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you're presenting it up front, and you're presenting it at the beginning of the process. So, like, just be honest and budget with it in mind. That's all. Especially if you're doing a Kickstarter, you have really no excuse.
Yeah.
Okay. So balancing lowest starting goal with realistic budget. Yeah. That's a hard one to and that's a thing that I can talk about later as a part of a different one, or maybe later today. Okay, so let's talk about writing here. We're going to say that this is a 30,000. I'm going to say it's a 50,000 word book. That's actually a pretty big RPG. It's not like super huge. iHunt, for basis of comparison, is about 200,000 words. It's a very big book. And what I budgeted here is I budgeted 5 cents a word or 10 cents a word for writing, and 1 or 2 for editing. These are just doubled rates. Like, these are just spitballing numbers. So say that our book is 50,000 words. And what this is going to do is it's going to calculate across, and it's going to give you your conservative budget and your bonus budget, your bigger budget. And then it's going to tabulate these together, and it's going to put them over here. So we know that the total cost of writing and editing is going to be $3,000 for the basic rate or $6,000 for the higher rate. And this actually addresses a little bit of what Dwan was talking about. This is bare minimum operating budget versus the ideal starting budget. That's hard. The other thing that you can do, and I don't advise it, but it is possible, is you can actually put in a rate of 0 for your base rate. If you're doing the work yourself and you want your bare bones like Kickstarter goal to be not reflecting pay to yourself, you can do that. I wouldn't advise it, but you can do that.
You can make a game for $0.
Yeah.
If you're doing everything by yourself and you don't think that your time is worth anything, you can make a game for $0.
Correct.
We all have, and we all will again.
But in this case, that we're talking about games that are like literally paying yourself. Like you're making a commercial product. Otherwise, why the fuck worry about money? Okay, so next we've got art and design. Let's say cover. We're gonna just say $125 or $250. This is going to be like a littler book, like a 6x9 book. And then we're going to say it's going to have 10 pieces of quarter-page art. And those are going to be at $12.50 each because they're just like little black and white line art. Or $25 if we get the bigger goal. We're not going to have half-page art. And full-page art, also, we're going to do 5 of those. And those are going to be $50 each. I don't know why, but this is just arbitrary. It's what we discussed with our artist. Okay. And then layout. The layout numbers that I put in here to default are Francita's basic rates. They're very similar to my rates whenever I do layout. And the way that works is basically for the first 10 pages, it's $80, and then it's basically $8 per page after that. So I've got a layout base and a layout per page. You're going to want to put one in for the base, and then the pages that are left over, you're going to put in whatever's here. So I'm going to say it's going to be 150 pages extra. Okay. So we have, and then I'm going to do 0 for the additional costs because that's like, whatever it matters. And then we've got our art and design here for this really bare bones book, 1,780, and then 3,560. This is a nice little professional project, but it's not a huge, like, enormous, gigantic book. Okay, now print on demand production budget. Production budget is going to be, you have to input it yourself and you have to figure it out yourself. So the thing that I'm going to do, it's a thing I did the other day, drive-through RPG, print on demand cost. And it's going to be right here, the print cost schedule for drive-through. And then we're going to say that in this case, it is a soft cover. We're going to say it's a black and white book. And it's a small because it's 6x9. And I think we decided it's going to be 160 pages because it's the base rate of 10 pages plus 150 additional pages. So we're going to say it's 160 pages. This is going to be $3.86 per copy. Okay, so $3.86 per copy. Okay, and then for the offset print, this is if you're going to get it printed by a professional print publisher. A printer, not a publisher, a printer. Printers will, the big advantage of offset printing is that it's much, much cheaper by units. Mm-hmm. But the disadvantage is you have a minimum order. Sometimes you'll find printers that have minimum orders in the range of 250, sometimes 500, sometimes 1,000 or more. The printer that I'm working with iHunt, their minimum is 500. They can technically do less than that, but you might as well not because the price is not really any different than the 500. So let's say hypothetically in this case, we're going to say $2.26 as long as you buy 250 copies. If you buy 500 copies, it might be $2.02. And then if you buy 1,000 copies, it's going to be $1.80. You do get dramatic economies of scale here. Sometimes it's like the difference of, for example, with iHunt, I think the total amount ends up being about $12 a copy. They would be $7 a copy if I bought twice as many. But obviously I wasn't sure that I would be able to move that many copies. So, fun. And another risk is sitting on a box of unsold books. Absolutely. Or, not even a box, but like, a fucking pallet. Like, you can sell or you can not sell a lot of books. I have worked with publishers before who like shared booths with me at Gen Con, and they ended up with pallets whenever they expected to sell pallets. And at the end of the week, they had to deal with that. Sucks. Okay. So that's production budget. You have to put these numbers in yourself. You have to figure out what the print-on-demand cost is, and then if you're doing offset or considering offset, put them in here. Get multiple quotes and put them in there. And this will break down how much it is to get your print run. Now look here. This is just a good estimate, but for a book like the size of like Flat Pack, these are very similar numbers. You have 250 copies for $1,000 through drive-through's print-on-demand program, or if you get them offset, $610. So that extra $400 of wiggle room is huge.
Yeah.
It's a big fucking deal. So if you think you can sell 250 copies and you have a printer that can give you rates like that, do it. Also, you have better books. They're just significantly better than print-on-demand. Okay. Next, advertising. Advertising is, of course, an optional thing, but I think it's very important to consider up front. And I think that really you need to like sort of communicate this, especially if you're doing a Kickstarter. You need to bake that in. You don't really have an excuse not to. You can spend this money up front yourself, but you do need to recoup it because it is your money. It is an expense. So I'm going to do this one without for now. just for the thought exercise. So my ad budget is going to be 0, but I broke it down with online ads, review copies. Review copies, I only really calculate the amount that it would take to ship them because those are coming out of your it's coming out of your print run. You're not paying any different if you're buying 500 copies and you're giving away 20 of them. It's not like, you're not selling those 20. It's just that you've already paid for them. Streaming. Some people need money to stream your game. So that's a thing. Sponsorship. Like if you want to sponsor a convention or something, that's an option. Other ads is just fucking open. So, Dwam, the thing about ads is that you probably don't buy games out of ads because you're a game designer and you are not a person that is prone to advertising. I have had some luck with things like Facebook ads. If you look to the Daniel Fox, the guy who does Zweihander, he built his entire business on Facebook ads, basically. He has had no luck with Twitter, but he has a lot of luck with Facebook. You can actually do pretty good. I've had a little bit of luck with Gamerati, who does the ads for like RPGNet and a couple of other places. I've heard in-world ads do okay. Depends on the game that you're selling and how you advertise it. So a little bit of an ad budget does go a long way, especially if you consider the amount that you have to really sell to recoup that. If your game is a $60 physical game and you make like $40 off of every copy, and you spend $100 on ads, if you sell 3 copies from those ads, then you're good to go. And yeah, you're correct, Dwam. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Yeah, and I can talk more about ads later on. Ads are a thing that it's super finicky, it's super complicated, and it's definitely deserving of its own topic. But you can actually sell games that way. And in fact, if you want to grow your audience, it's important because otherwise you're just selling sort of to your echo chamber. And if you sell to someone who wouldn't have otherwise seen your game, like if a Facebook ad turns someone onto your game, even if you're losing money on the immediate ad campaign, like you spend $500 and you recoup $300 from immediate sales from that ad campaign, that's $300 in sales from people who will probably buy your later games. So it's actually a little bit more interesting. The numbers break down a little bit differently and like a little bit more abstractly. If you make a fan for life, that's potential Patreon money. That's potential more games down the line. There's a lot of opportunity there. So yeah, advertising can be beneficial. Okay. And yes, streaming is very hard, and sponsoring streaming is a thing. It's a mixed results, but okay. So now we have a 60 or 160 page softcover RPG. I'm gonna put in a couple of MSRPs here. Let's do 10, 20, and 30 for this thought experiment. Okay, so in these cases, what we have is we have a basic royalty for $10. It's $6.50, $9, $8, $7, $5.50, and $10. This is not counting the print costs. If you're doing a print cost, this is just the basic royalty, and it's just here to like sort of communicate the idea so you see it. You will notice immediately that distribution is awful. IPR sells through retailers, and you get a 45% cut. They take 55%. That's because they sell at 40% to the retailer, and then they take a 20% of their own. I think it's 40. Yeah, it breaks down to be 55 that it gets taken off. I don't know how it breaks down exactly, but that's what it is. So you will probably, if you are not increasing your price commensurately, you can just go into the red selling through distribution. So that's a thing to be careful about. Now, we will notice that here the distribution rate is 11. That's a little bit more realistic. And then here it's $16.50, which is even more realistic. That still leaves you getting more than $10 a copy. It's not quite as good as every other outlet here, but those are copies that you didn't need to sell. They're in a store. People will stumble upon them. They're in convention booths. People will stumble upon them. This is growing your business. It's not just, raw profit and trying to maximize every single sale. Itch is digital only. We sell physical through Itch, but it's through consignment, basically. Like, there's a separate button that you have to do to do physical, and we sell them that way. Like, we actually handle it. So yeah, that's the Itch thing. Now let's look at the budget sheets for a second. So we have our budgets here. So this adds up our production costs, our writing, art and design, and ad budget. It does not do the production cost, and there's a reason for this. This is the actual just the basic budgets here, and they add up over here, and they're going to take your base production cost. The reason for this is that if you're only doing a digital product, then you need to know what your total expenses and costs are without bothering with the print version. And then this is your print run costs. This is going to take your 3 estimates from the other side. And it's going to break down the cost of your print runs. It's going to break down the quantity that you're going to receive. It's going to and then you're going to want to input the shipping here. I don't, this is, you got to do this yourself. So I should actually make that highlighted. And I'm going to unprotect those cells. Okay. So this is basically, if you get a quote for shipping, you're going to put it in there. You don't have to do this, but this is an important part of the process if you really want to understand your costs. Shipping is a nightmare, especially if you're doing offset. It's really, really a hassle. It's so bad. And this is only shipping to you. I strongly advise that you consider what your shipping strategies are on the outside, like if you're selling directly, because that's its own monster. It's very complicated. It's a thing that we can talk about later, but it's way complex for this purpose. And so basically, this is going to break down your per unit. This is a little different than the per unit on the previous page because it also considers the shipping cost. And then this is the no shipping print on demand. So this is the base rate for print on demand. The reason why I have this in addition to the one with the shipping is because some outlets like drive-thru will let you just do print on demand through them, and then the customer handles shipping and you never have to worry about it. So I just wanted that to be there separate. Okay, now here are your various MSRPs, so you can compare and contrast. These are, I put in 3 fields for digital, 3 fields for physical. And the way that these work is that they will calculate down. And they will only go in their own fields. Like you'll notice that these 3 are digital, and only the digital fields below will calculate. Because we don't want to mix and match them. And then physicals over here, all of the physical fields will come in here, etc., etc. Okay. Now, what this is this is the number of copies that you need to sell to break even with that particular avenue of sale. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated because you're never going to sell just one way. Especially if you're not exclusive through a website, which you should not be. You're going to sell some through drive-thru, some through Itch, some through Kickstarter. You're going to sell all over the place. And each one is going to give you a little bit different rate. The reason why you need to know how many copies to break even here is there's actually 2 reasons. The first is you just need to know whether or not your prices are reasonable. If you can't expect to sell 1,471 copies digitally, then your price is too low. Because that's how much you need to break even. And this is using the conservative estimate, mind you, because this is the conservative budget sheet. So if you can't sell 1,471 copies, if you don't think that that's possible, then that $5 price tag is fucked. Don't do it. Don't fucking do it. But this is letting you compare and contrast. You got $5, $10, $20, and then we've got for physicals 20, 40, and 60. I'm going to say, I think we are going to do 10, 20, and 30. Okay, so you'll notice that some of the fields turn red. And anyone want to guess what that is?
It means they go faster.
Yeah, it means they go 3 times faster. That's right. I'm taking a drink of water, so I'm letting people guess. Yes, bad. That's right, Dom. That's it. It's bad.
That's bad.
So if the field turns red, then what that means is at this price, you need to sell more copies than you have. So in the case of physical MSRP 1, you need to sell 818 copies through Kickstarter to justify that. Now the problem with that is that this is the MSRP 1, this is offset 1, so that means that you are going to have 250 copies, and you need to sell 818. You do not have 818 copies, so there is no way that through that avenue, at that price, you can make enough money to break even.
Not even with the stock market's help.
Not even with the stock market's help. No, you fucked yourself if you went with that rate. So it's in red. And so this is important. The physical offset 2, you need to sell 661, and there are 500 copies. Not enough. However, physical offset 3, you need to sell 968, and you have 1,000 copies, so you will have enough, technically. You're cutting it a little close, but you will have, within a certain margin of error, the ability, technically, to break even, if you can sell all those copies. So that's why they turn red. Now, we have our 5, 10, 20 digital rate. We have our 10, 20, 30 physical rate. These are hypothetical numbers. They're just sort of numbers I pulled out of my ass. We'll talk a little bit about more specific examples in a moment. Okay. And I'm going to... so let's look here. If we're selling this $160 page game for $5 digitally, then in order to break even on drive-thru, we need to sell 1,471 copies. Through Kickstarter, we would need to sell 1,062. Now, does this right here, look at this, the difference. 1,471 versus 1,062. It's the difference of 499 copies.
Which is a lot.
Which is a lot. Which is to say that selling through drive-thru is making you a lot less money and requires that you sell a lot more copies for the exact same outcomes. This is super important. IPR, you'd need to sell 1,192. They are not quite as good as Kickstarter, who only really takes 5% plus credit card processing fees, but they are much, much better than Drive-Thru RPG. Direct sales, you need to sell 956 because you basically get 100% minus whatever processing fee that you have or whatever. So, 956. Direct sales are always best from a numbers standpoint. They're not always feasible, and they are not the best way to expand your business because direct sales you have to do organically. You have to do them through yourself. Or not organically, you have to do them directly. Organic growth has to happen other than that. But this is important. If, hypothetically, you were doing a print-on-demand version of this book at $10, you can look at it, and you know that if you're selling directly, you need to sell 1,010 copies. Good fucking luck. It's not going to happen. Yes, Dewam, you are definitely factoring the gas money from selling door to door. That's absolutely a thing. But the red here, I think, is mostly as a sort of a warning, and it definitely puts things into perspective as far as pricing goes. Let's look at physical MSRP here. Change this to 20, change this to 30, and change this to 40. Your project just got much more viable. And you will notice here, this is an important one, distribution through IPR. It's still in the red. And even in POD and in your offset 1. So what if I make this like $45? Still not okay. $50. Ah, no. $60. So basically what this is telling me here is that unless I have the ability to sell this book at that rate, maybe I shouldn't look at distribution. I'd have to jack up the price significantly in order to make it viable. Maybe you can justify that, but a $60 softcover book, probably not. If you want to do a $40 book, though, like this is here, if you want to do the $40 version and you want to do it through distribution, look at the offset options. You have this option and this option. This option and this option, sorry. Offset 2 and 3. And those are both viable at $40. In fact, if you get the full big 1,000 print run, it's viable at 297 copies, which is actually pretty reasonable. But if you're doing it through print on demand, like if you're buying them through Lightning Source or through DriveThruRPG or through Lulu or something, fuck off. Like, don't do it through distribution. Don't do it. There's no real way to make that realistic for you. So this is the conservative estimate here. Now let's look at for a second at the other version. This version takes your higher budget, your conservative, your higher budget, this one right here, and then it's going to put that in with your costs, and it's going to calculate the exact same way. So we're going to say, or what was our rate over here? 20, 30, 40? Yeah, 20, 30, 40. And this is going to be 5, 10, 20 still. Okay, so look at this. I put in the same 20, 30, 40 here, and it's not viable. This book is not viable except in a very few rare cases. If you want to do a physical offset print run and you want to send it through distribution, your option is to take your third quote, your one that you have 1,000 copies. That's the only way that you're going to be able to sell that through distribution and make it worthwhile, because your production costs are so much higher.
Mm-hmm. But maybe those are not numbers that scare you. Maybe that is a thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can do that, like if you can, in this case, 1,000 copies would be about $1,950. That's actually not that much. Like it sounds like a lot if you're broke, but $2,000 is it's pretty fair. It's pretty reasonable, and it breaks down very well. So if you can make that work, do it. Like by all means, but you have to understand that like these numbers are a big deal, and if you keep it cheap, then you are not going to do distribution. Like it's just not going to happen. So you have to jack up those prices commensurately. You absolutely have to. And in the case of Kickstarter or whatever, this is the higher version. This is the one that you put in as a stretch goal. Now, the sort of interesting part of that is that basically once you've got this budget covered, unless you're doing another print run, your expenses are covered. You're good. Once you hit that number, once you break even, everything after that is profit. Which starts to look really nice whenever you're selling a book that's like, $20 digital, and you are getting, say, for example, in this calculator, you're doing digital, and you're selling for $13. You're selling on drive-thru for $20, and you're making $13 each. That $13 just goes straight in your pocket. It's just money. And once you've got your budget covered, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's just accruing revenue, which you can use towards your next game, or you can use to pay your fucking electric bill.
And you've already paid yourself, right?
Yeah, you've already paid yourself. So this is just icing on the cake.
And this is what you use to fund your next book, which will be the $1,000 print run.
Yes.
$2,000 print run.
Alternatively, you can look at this as like, you can look at your rates. Like, for example, if you're doing your calculator here, I said you can technically not pay yourself. One thing that you could do is not pay yourself the premium rate, but pay yourself the bare bones rate. And that way you hit that break-even point earlier, and that money just goes into your pocket. You don't need to worry about that part of the budget.
Yeah.
It's okay. So yeah. That's the raw basics of how this works. Before I get into examples, does anyone have any questions about the way that this works?
And I do want to comment a little bit on like what Dwam mentioned as far as distribution goes, because of his situation where they're at. Selling to the English market, to English-speaking market, means like you have to do distribution. You don't really have a choice because he can't do direct sales. He can't pop into a convention and sell hand to hand. So you need to consider that in your setup. And the other thing is, like, depending on where the costs go and that sort of thing, you can sell a game book at a loss.
Yeah, you can.
Or you can rely on digital sales until a certain point. Like, use the calculator, figure out what you need to hit, wait till digital sales cover that print run or whatever. And then, you've got a little bit more of a safety net there.
Yes. Now, you can also use this calculator and plug in zeros for things like the cost. What if, for example, you're doing a game for free RPG Day?
Yeah.
You put in the cost, the MSRP, and what you're going to get here is a negative number because every copy is going to cost you. But you can find out how much every copy will cost you. So if you're doing a free RPG Day and okay, I'm going to do 200 copies and I'm going to ship them out, whatever, this is how much every copy is going to cost me. So basically I need to know that like this total amount that I'm spending, this is what I have to be able to justify. Not everything needs to make games. Some things can be loss leaders. Some things can just be for advertising value. And you calculate those the exact same way. So you know their budget, you know exactly what goes into them, and that way you're not like throwing away what discretionary income you have without an understanding of where that's going.
And this might be a good way too for you to justify that thing that is going to be at a cost.
Yes.
I'm making a passion project and it's fine, and I'm going to do it all the way through publication because that's going to make me feel good.
Yeah.
Then I can say, okay, here's what it costs me to feel good about this project.
Yeah.
And if you're upfront with that and you can manage that, God bless.
Yeah, like I've known some people to do games where they wanted to write the game, but they wanted it to be professionally published. They wanted a good editor. They wanted good art. And so this is a way you could absolutely do a hobby project. I think that it's very important that you consider those things from the outset. Like you have an understanding of what all of these numbers mean to you. And I think that this type of spreadsheet is particularly valuable because then you can look at it and you can ask yourself, where can I cut a little bit of the cost? Like if this is going to cost me $2,500 and I don't think I'm going to make the money back because I'm doing it as a hobby project, where can I trim a little bit and be safe?
Yeah.
So yes, it is kind of the privilege of putting something out to the world. Absolutely, absolutely. It is a very complicated scenario. Okay, so let's talk about a game. Let's.
Can I say one other thing about this in general?
Sure.
Please understand that doing the work of figuring out this math and putting it into practice and charging everything the way that you've charged for it and that sort of thing does not guarantee that you're going to sell those 478 copies or whatever the number comes.
Not even remotely.
Please understand that doing this math is good for doing the math. It's good for planning ahead. It is not, unfortunately, a guarantee that you will actually sell the things that you're trying to sell. That's a whole different discussion.
It is a whole different discussion.
Exactly.
There are ways to look into those numbers and with a more educated perspective. The one that I was making on Wednesday of last week, whenever we did 60 or so percent, was that you can basically expect about 1% of your social media following to purchase your project. I'm not saying that that's where your limit is. I'm saying that that's a safe buffer.
Yeah.
You can basically take your primary active social media following, divide it by 100, basically take the last 2 digits off of that number, and that's about how many copies you can expect to sell without working too hard. Just posting on social media regularly and saying, this is a thing that I have, please buy it. This is what it is, please buy it. So whenever you're looking at these numbers of minimums that you need to sell, basically you can take that number, the 1% of your social media following, you can take that number and just deduct it right off. You can expect to sell those copies. That said, that's probably not going to be the number that you need to sell in order to sell the product. So what you need to do is you need to have another strategy for selling. That's a whole other fucking stream of talk. Like, that's a very complicated issue.
And frankly, I'd like to get some other people on who have done at higher levels than we have.
Absolutely, you know what I mean? Absolutely. We can absolutely talk about that with other people. But this is a thing that I think that we can go into later. That's kind of, just make DM's Guild scantily clad women's supplements. That's absolutely, if you want to break even, like if you want to make money, that's a good way to do it.
Okay, alternately, may I suggest 9.7 foot tall vampire ladies.
Yeah, 9 foot tall vampire ladies is a thing. So that said, I have the next iHunt scene planned out. Basically, Francita, can you make us a very tall vampire?
I can do anything.
Okay, well then, why are we doing this mugs game of stuff that we don't know if it'll sell? Whenever we could very easily just do 9 foot tall vampire ladies.
If 9 is good, 12 must be better. You might be right.
You might be right. All I know is that right now the 9 foot 6 inch vampire lady is extremely popular, I think that that's a safe bet.
Benjamin must be living her best life right now.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. So let's talk about some examples, I guess.
Yeah.
So basically, let's talk about Flatpak.
Flatpak.
How many words is Flatpak?
Oh fuck.
Find out. We're gonna break down Flatpak because we're writing it right now.
Where is a lot of people?
What?
You're not writing it. What do you see? What do you say? We're.
I'm fucking editing it.
Yeah, but you're not writing it.
I'm not writing it. No, you're right.
But you do have a place on the chart.
I'm just giving you shit, sorry.
It's okay. You're allowed giving me shit.
Well, hi. Sorry. Where is it? I have to open my notebook and then open my notebook.
Wow.
And then open my notebook.
Wow.
Okay, what did it say here? Okay, fuck.
No.
Because they're like 12 pages, 15 pages, 4 pages, 6 pages, 20 pages, 12 pages, 8 pages, and 20 pages. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I haven't broken it down by word count because that would be madness.
That would be madness. That's right. Okay.
So what's the average? 12?
I think it's 350 pages. So how many pages are you looking at? Or 350 words per page?
Yeah.
We know how many pages the book is going to be.
We do.
You just need to tell me.
But it's not on this list. It's not on this thing. I don't know why.
Is it the same number that you planned like at the beginning?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the confluence, I think.
Sorry.
It's 112.
Oh, 112. Okay. So in that case,
I don't know why. But
So step one, know how many words or how many pages is your fucking book.
Okay, so this we're gonna say it's like 40,000 words.
Sounds right.
Okay, so 40,000 words, and we're going to use the base rate of 5 cents and 10 cents, editing 1 cent and 2 cents. Development is going to be done by the writer and the editor in this case, so we don't need to worry about it too much. Proofreading, likewise, we're not going to bother. Consultation, we don't have any post-apocalyptic children to consult. So,
I might ask Tina some questions.
yeah. Okay.
the closest.
And then in this case, our cover art is actually not going to have a rate because our cover art is going to be repurposed from the internal art. We have...
Fun life hack.
Yeah. We have Tachiers, which I'm going to count as quarter page. And those we have... How many do we have? We have 8?
I think so.
Yeah, we have 8 of those. And then half pages, we have 0. Full pages, we have, those are $50 each, and we have, how many of them? 8?
I'm sorry, one more time? Yeah, 8.
8 of them, yeah. Okay. Layout, that is going to be the base rate plus about 100 pages. Okay. So, what we have here is we have 112 pages, and we've got the print cost schedule, so it's 112 in here, and that's going to be $3.18. $3.18. And then offset, I know that we were looking at it, and the rates were about the same for 250. For 500, it was about $2.50, and for 1,000 copies, it was about $2. Okay. The shipping isn't that scary because they are so small. And then I'm not going to worry about ads for this purpose here, but let's see. MSRPs, let's just hypothetically do $5, $10, $20. Just to experiment. So we know here, if we do $5, $10, and $20, we know what rates we're going to get. Through drive-through, we're going to make $3.25 per copy. That's bullshit. There's no fucking way I'm going to do that. $10, we make $6.50? Maybe.
Maybe.
20, we make 13. That's much more reasonable, especially considering through direct sales and through other things like Itch, we're going to get a lot more. So that's going to recoup a lot of the sort of the money that we eat by selling through drive-through. But this is our basic budget for flat pack. We have the base rate of $2,400 for words and $1,480 for art and design. We're not bothering with our our ad budget here because that's its own animal, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But okay, so we have our budget here. Oh, right here. 388. Okay, so we know that our base budget is going to be $3,880. That sounds about right.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, not counting ads. We will probably put a pretty big chunk into ads. Okay, and then printing costs. We know what our printing costs are going to be because I put them in on the previous page, and this is what it breaks down to. If we want 1,000 copies, it's going to cost us about $2,150. That is probably the option that we're going to go for, but that's because we know that that's the option that we're going to go for at this point. We're way late in this process.
But still, eek.
Yeah. So we've got, what was our rates here? 5, 10, and 20. That's right. And so we've got 5, 10, and 20 here. And then for the game itself, let's try 15, or the physical, let's try 15, 20, and 30. Okay.
Which,
Hmm.
is that tough?
Well, it can be.
Hmm.
Let's see here. So the physical POD that we would sell through drive-through, in order to break even on this book, we would need to sell 505 copies at 15, 355 copies at 20, or 223 copies at $30.
30 is feeling pretty reasonable, huh?
30 is feeling pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
There's other things like sort of intangibles that I'll explain later that are valuable. Through drive-through, if we're selling at the $5 rate, we would need to sell 1,194 copies to break even. Basically,
How many copies did the original game sell?
that's a good question. If you give me a second, I can tell you.
Just a point of reference, if you have. You may
Yeah,
not have this.
the original version is our best selling by volume.
It doesn't mean much, but it does mean something.
Okay, so let's see. Flat Pack Fix the Future. And we're going to do this through 2010 to current. And we're going to run a report. And I'm going to wait a moment because drive-through is very slow.
No, Pope, wait until the new edition comes out. It'll be better in every way.
Yeah, just wait until the new edition comes out, please.
Please.
Well, no, just get the new one. It's okay.
Yeah.
Jeezy Pete.
Or get 2 copies.
Or get 2, yeah. Okay, so we have sold... Oh, it doesn't have volume.
What?
It used to have it. Oh my god. Okay. Actually, I do know a way to find out this number. Flat Pack and... Oh, no. Okay, so...
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't really know. We've sold probably about 3,000 or 4,000 copies of it, give or take. A lot of those were at steep discounts, so it's a little difficult. Like, that's one of the other things about saying, well, you need to sell this many copies. Drive-Thru RPG has like 4 sales a year that are massive.
Yeah.
They have one in every season, basically.
And you can't opt out.
You can opt out of them, but you're basically shooting yourself in the foot because that's one of Drive-Thru's biggest selling points,
Right.
is those massive sales.
Right.
It's like selling at Walmart. Like, you're going to make shit money from it, but the volume will make up for it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Okay, so... we could theoretically sell that many, but it would be hard, and I think that the numbers don't really bear out very well for that because most of those were at fire sale prices. A lot of them were like 75% off for like their Christmas and July sale and stuff like that. So we definitely did not sell that many copies at full price. But that's at $5. $10, you basically half that figure, and $20, you have it again. So at $20, we only need to sell 298 copies. And that's the digital rate. Through itch, look at these differences. 1,194 versus 862. 597 versus 431. Or 298 versus 216. On itch, if we sell it at $20, we only need to sell basically 200 copies to break even. That's extremely good.
Yeah.
We will absolutely sell that many copies.
Yeah. Tell your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good, like, welcoming thing. Like, if I look at my the social media metric that I was just talking about, I have 12,000 Twitter followers. I can basically expect 120 copies without much stress.
Yeah.
I will sell 120 copies without having to fight for it.
Yeah.
That's more than half of that number.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
And that means that we have room to put it on sale.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not going to do Kickstarter, so it's not important here. IPR, their digital rate is just slightly better than drive-thrus and slightly worse than itches. So it's going to be between those two numbers. We won't sell that many copies through IPR. IPR does not sell many digital books. The strength of IPR is in its distribution and direct sales of physical books. Now, this is a big deal. Okay. Yes, Dwam, an alternative to Kickstarter would be like, please help me sell XXX copies to break even. Yes. The only problem is that the Kickstarter model drives urgency, which gets people to buy.
Yep.
It does very well, and it's like, it is what it is.
The real trick with Kickstarter is the buzz created with it, and frankly, creators who don't actually know how much their stuff is going to cost.
Correct. And we've fucked ourselves on this before.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's very easy to overpromise whenever you're doing that sort of thing, and that sucks.
Because the model almost demands it.
I completely agree, Dwam. Kickstarter stresses me the fuck out. We have done them before to mixed results. Some of them very good, some of them very bad. I will not do it again. I don't need to. So why? All right, so let's see here. IPR. If we sell direct and we sell through IPR, then we need to sell 225 copies directly or 400 through distribution. The interesting thing about the print-on-demand rate here that I quoted is I quoted if we were going to buy 250 copies. But there's nothing stopping you from buying more. That's one of the actually cool things about print-on-demand is you can just up that number. So let's look over here. Now, 500 copies of print-on-demand. Okay, and let's see. Oh. $3.36 copy, or 36 a copy. And the quantity here is going to be E24. Okay. I don't know why that is not calculating correctly. If that is, let's see, data, conditional formatting. Let's see, and this is going to be C10, if it's greater than C10. I don't know why it didn't recalculate. It's a little weird. It didn't auto recalculate, but that's okay. I'm sure if you close the spreadsheet and open it back up, it will probably fix that. Because the conditional formatting rule is there. The value is greater than C10, and that is C10. And that is definitely 500. Okay, but let's pretend that turned unread. So the idea is if you're buying 500 copies through print on demand, you actually will be able to get through just distribution on IPR alone if you're able to sell those copies, which is actually pretty good. POD is almost never viable. But if we're selling it for $30 and we're selling it through POD, through IPR, then it is actually a viable sale. In our case, we are probably going to go more for offset 3, and that's going to be 324 copies through distribution or 175 copies through direct. Main issue of POD is the lack of quality. You're absolutely right. It's also price. The price of POD does not scale. It's nice if you're getting less than like 100 copies, but more than that, you're starting to shoot yourself in the foot. And so then you have to sort of weigh the risks of getting that print run. The big benefit of POD is that people can direct buy. Someone can go to DriveThruRPG, order a copy of my book, have it printed and shipped to them. I don't have to fuck with it. It's actually really nice. And the format does kind of suck. We have our Season 1 and Season 2 books. They're not what I would like them to be, but there's no viable way to do a print run of them. So we don't. We do POD. They're not perfect, but it's the best that we can do given the circumstances.
And I think it's viable to consider all of this stuff in terms of your physical abilities, too.
Yes.
If you are having an offset print run, like a full print run, and you are disabled, if you are home insecure, any of those things, you might have the money to do it, but like it might not be viable for you to pack up 500 copies and email and send them to places.
Correct.
And if that's okay.
If that's okay, if that's your situation, then basically you take this direct sale category and you just fuck it off. Like you just ignore it. You can send to IPR. If you do a print run, you can just have it literally shipped to them. 500 or 1,000 copies. You can have it shipped to them, and they handle the distribution and they handle the fulfillment. They sell directly, and the rates are right here. And all of your customers who want a copy, you can just send them to IPR. And in this case, that you're going to have to sell it to 175 of them.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
So, you can do that. You can do that if being your own distributor, going that level of DIY is just not in your fucking cards. That's okay. That's fine. Okay, so we have these numbers here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take them over here, and what was it? 15, 20, 30? Yeah. 15, 20, 30. This is just a thought experiment. We're just looking here. How many would we have to sell if we have our bumped up rate, where we're paying ourselves 10 cents a word? We're paying a pretty reasonable. We're paying everyone twice as much for these deals. In this case, the only way it's viable through distribution and through distribution is the 1,000 copies, because we need to sell 647 of them in order to make that work.
But if we do that, then I can make it rain on you.
That's right, yeah. But then also you have direct sales, and if you're doing direct sales of those, you only need to sell 363 because you're making twice as much money off of each one.
Right.
That's a big fucking deal.
And the reality is it's a combination of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yes, and you're doing a combination. So, like, for example, I say that you only need to, in order to justify your budget, you need to sell 647 through distribution. That's not actually true. What if you sell 300 through distribution, and that's about half of this amount? So let's say 325, about half of that amount. You would only need to sell, in this case, half of these. So you need to sell 1,000 digitals, or 1,200 digitals, or 900 digitals through itch. And if you sold half of that amount and half of this amount, then you're good. You've hit your budget. For the purposes of this, because it is a private thing that we're doing ourselves, I would say that we would probably use the conservative estimate, because we know that in the end the profit is going to come back to the company, and it's going to go directly into our operating budgets, and our wages and stuff. So that's the thing. That's flat pack. That's how we would have to sell to break even with flat pack.
Yeah. That feels doable.
Yeah, this is very viable.
Yeah. So pay me the big bucks.
Yeah, this is this is an extremely viable project. It's very low budget. It's a very easy one to put out there. Now let's do a scary one.
Let's do a big, gorgeous fantasy heartbreaker.
We're gonna do Savage Garden.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Let's do Savage Garden. Savage Garden is going to be about 350 pages. Okay, this is Nightmare Town. Print on demand for color books, especially hardcovers, is fucked. Look here. The number is $38.77. So print on demand, we are going to put in here $38.77. That was what it was, right? $38.77? Yeah. $38.77. Okay, I want you to take a look here. If we're doing our own run of 250 books at this rate, we would need to spend $10,000 to have 250 books.
So that's a no.
That's a great big goddamn no. Now, Let's look here at, actually, I have some good numbers here.
So I feel like there's a number, a size of a book
Yeah,
that once you're over it, you really can't justify print on demand in that way.
correct. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, shit, where is it? What the fuck? Oh, there we go. Okay, pulling up. All right, so this is going to include shipping and everything too, because that's what I had for this one. I'm actually going to use the same rate that I got for iHunt, and I'm going to break it down, but I have to do a little bit of conversion because I don't know how euros work. Just going to be fucking leveling with you here. 6,809.
Okay, so step 3, know how euros work.
Yeah, because we printed in Europe. Okay, so my rate for iHunt was $8,225 for 500 copies, divided by 500. So they ended up being a total of $16.45. Okay. Oh, 500. And then that's going to be 1645. 1645. Okay. I know that if I got 1,000, they would be closer to $11. And then 5,000 is the big fucking number that I'm never going to hit, but I'm going to put it in here anyway. And that would be about $8. Okay. So, those are big fucking numbers. But you'll notice here that with the print-on-demand version, it's twice as much as even the cheapest option that I have for offset printing. Yeah. The price of a print-on-demand run of $250 is literally more than an offset print run of $500. This is a big deal. It's a massive, massive difference. Okay. And then basically once you get into the higher numbers, the thousands, it's just ludicrously different. Okay, so conservative rate, higher rate, conservative rate, higher rate. These are actually going to be the same in this case. No, I am not consulting you on this one. You know who you are. This book is going to be about 200,000 words. Okay, so this is a big fucking book. This is a massive one, and then the art, probably going to have a similar rate here, 50. Or actually, no, we're doing our own art in house, and that's Francita and myself. But I can calculate the basics here, and so let's see, 340. Pages, and then full page art, probably 12. Layout base, half page arts, probably also about 12, and quarter page probably about 24. Okay, so this is going to be our art and production rating. I'm not counting a cover because we will sort of come up with that. I will probably do that on my own or have Francita do it, but it'll happen in our spare time thing, because when genius strikes. Okay, this is without ads too. This is a really fucking big number. Like this is a much bigger number than Flatpak. Okay, MSRP. Let's say that it was a $10 game. Let's say that it was a $20 game. And let's say that it was a $30 game.
There is a question in the chat.
Okay, sure.
What is the main appeal to owning a book over a digital copy? I'm so out of touch with how most people read these days.
Well, I think that some people like to just have physical things. Like they like to collect things. They like to have things on the shelf. They also like to have things at the table. It's very easy if you have like an iPad at the table to like get distracted. You can go like you can go into you can go into your Twitter account. Like you can do all kinds of shit whenever you're on a tablet at the table. So sometimes it's better for table reference. I personally like physical books a lot of the times because I spend all day in front of the monitor. Like I'm literally working for 8 hours a day in front of the computer monitor. So if I want to read a game, I need to step away. I need to. Otherwise, I'll just fucking dick off for a while.
There's a very funny viral post that went around the other day that's like buying RPGs and playing RPGs are actually not the same hobby.
No, they're not. They're not.
So, owning physical books is for some people its own hobby, and that's fine.
And in the case of a game like Savage Garden, I think that there's a benefit in that the book is an art piece. It is a book that looks cool, and it's a neat thing. So that's okay. So this is the very basics of Savage Garden.
For some people, screen reading is very difficult.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is. It is. So and so it's a little complex. Everyone has their own arguments and reasons and whatever, and so I just like to have it in both ways. I do find that if you only have a game in digital, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot because there's a lot of people who will only buy physicals.
And will tell you. I'm not buying this until it's physical. Let me know when it's physical. I'm not buying this until it's physical. I know.
Yeah. And yeah, like neat things are neat. Like they're good. Okay, so here's our rates here. We know that if we sell it through drive-through at $10, we're going to make $6.50. And we know all of these ranges here. We know what this looks like. 20, we know how much we're going to make off of every copy, and 30, we know how much we're going to make off of every copy. This is just eyeballing for digital. Now let's look at the actual budget breakdowns here. This is scary. These numbers are very big.
It's okay.
Yeah. So let's look here. The shipping is I actually already calculated into the cost. Well, these should not be protected.
Must protect the...
I don't want to show a warning. Okay, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. So these are all actually factored in. I don't need to worry about those. In the case of print on demand, oh god, print on demand is very expensive for big books. In fact, I would say that if we're doing a 250 print run of this book, we did 250 prints of The Player's Companion recently, and that's a tiny book. This would be a very big book. I would probably say it's going to be about $400. That's just a off-the-cuff estimate, but I would say that it's probably going to be a lot like that. Okay. So, what the fuck's going on here? I4 divided by F18 minus D14 okay. I'm sorry. The reason why these numbers are negative I was confused. The reason why they're negative is because you literally cannot sell enough to do it. Like, the numbers break.
Okay, well then.
Because these are lower than the cost that it would take to actually print them. So if the number is in the negative, that means that the math breaks down. I should, in the future, I will maybe add it gives you a warning if the number is going to be less than 0. Of course, if the book is $30, you can't recoup the amount. Like, it doesn't work because the book costs more than that to print. So the numbers don't really work. And in this case, you're going to see the same thing here. Your POD, you cannot do it. If you're doing the offset, okay, that's weird. That's weird. H18 It's $30. Oh, because I've got the physical number set so low. What am I doing? Okay, let's do 80. Let's do 60. And let's do 40. Okay, so hypothetical numbers. If I sell Savage Garden for $40, which a lot of people tell me is the right price for an RPG that's 350 pages, right? I've heard that before.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
If I sell Savage Garden for $40, which is a number that a lot of people have said is the right price for a 350-page book.
Remember the thing where I told you earlier about how you shouldn't listen to readers as if they're the same advice?
Yeah.
This is the same thing here.
Yes, it's a big deal. If I sold Savage Garden for $40 through DriveThruRPG, in order to break even, I would need to sell 19,262 copies.
That would be like if everyone who follows you on Twitter bought a copy and a quarter.
Yeah, everyone would have to buy multiple copies. Yes. And that would just be breaking even.
Right.
Okay, if I sell it for 60, that number instead of being 19,000 becomes 1,100.
Huh, amazing how that works.
Yeah.
That's what
this is the difference of $20 on the side of the producer, on the side of the studio, the designer, is enormous.
Yeah, well, I think Monty Cook sells games at $100 a pop now.
He does, sometimes more.
And I think that $80 a book is something that, like, unfortunately, as printing costs and shipping costs go up, that's the reality. Invisible
Sun, Monty Cook's big game, $300. The digital version, $100. The PDF version is $100.
And that shit sold.
And it's sold. It's an adamantine seller on DriveThru. It's sold, thousands of copies.
Yep.
So Monty did good with that.
Not saying you should do that.
No. But also his production budget was enormous. Like he's got like 1,000 pages of art. Like it's really, really obscene. But anyway, outside of that thought exercise, $40, we need to sell 20,000 copies. That's never going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
And even if it did, we would sell 20,000 copies and break even. Fuck that. Okay.
Can you imagine selling 20,000 copies of anything and being like, well, I guess I paid it off.
Yeah, I guess we're in the black now. Fuck you. Fuck you. Okay, so $60, we would sell 1,100 copies and we could break even. $80, we sell 575 copies, we break even. It's actually pretty reasonable. That's through DriveThru's print on demand. And yes, you're right, Dwam. He's probably the only one in the industry who can do that from an indie level. Okay, so then digitals at $5, $10, and $20, we are selling... actually, iHunt was $30. So I'm going to do 10, 20, 30 here, just to be fair. These are more realistic numbers. So to break even on this book at $10, we need to sell 2,369 copies. $20, we need to sell 1,185. And for $30, we need to sell 790, which is actually pretty reasonable through DriveThru. That's just through DriveThru.
Just through.
Through itch. Through itch at that rate, we would only need to sell $570. Or 570 copies at $30, which is 220 better than DriveThru. Think about it like this: not exclusive through DriveThru. If you're looking at it like this, think about it as in there's 220 copies that basically get gone. Like if you sell that amount, then basically you've got 220 copies that if you sold them on itch, those would be profit in your pocket. But instead you sold them through DriveThru and you made less money on each copy, so you ate that money. Now, there are a lot of people who will only buy on DriveThru, so...
Eating money is not smart.
Yeah, eating money is not smart. There are much more efficient things that you can do with it, at least until inflation kicks in. Okay.
In 5 minutes, none of these numbers will be correct.
So...
Sorry.
Okay, so physical offsets. Let's talk about physical offsets here. I'm not going to bother with Kickstarter for this game, but IPR. If we're doing physical POD, I could theoretically make money if it was $80. I could technically make money on it that way.
Mm.
If I do less than $80, I'm basically eating the cost. It's just not going to happen.
And again, we don't eat money.
No. Through distribution, print on demand is just not viable. You cannot do it. It's not reasonable. If you're doing the physical offset version, the first tier, direct, you could theoretically do it. The second tier, distribution, you would need to sell 854 copies, or directly you'd need to sell 480. That's scary.
Only if you look at that number, that is in a vacuum.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing. You can't look at any of these results in a vacuum.
No.
You have to look at them as a part of a battle plan,
That's correct.
right?
Yeah. And the physical offset, the numbers don't actually change very much here. The direct does change pretty dramatically because of the better royalty rate, but the distribution rate does not change. You still have to sell, you actually have to sell more copies, 867 versus 854. The reason why that is, if you recall, whenever I put those numbers in the first place, I was talking about the difference between 1,000 copies and 5,000 copies. This is actually really important. If you think about this, I have 1,000 copies, I have 5,000 copies. If I sell them through distribution, it takes the same number, basically, just a little bit more in this case, but it basically takes the same number to break even if I bought 1,000 copies versus 5,000 copies.
Which means you have 4,000 copies
Yes,
in profit, basically.
potentially.
If you can sell
Also,
them.
if you can sell them. Otherwise, you have Dwam's coffee table. You have
And
the throne. You have the chair. 5,000 copies of a book is a lot. So unless you think you're going to sell those 5,000, then it's just a weird thought exercise. Nobody's selling 5,000 copies right now. Monty Cook is selling 5,000 copies right now. You are not Monty Cook.
I mean, okay, if Monty Cook is in the audience right now, hi Monty, God bless.
Yeah, good for you. Good fucking job. You're doing great. Good on you. So that's kind of how that works. In the case of direct sales, which is probably what we're going to focus on mostly with Savage Garden, we would need to sell 384 to make that 1,000 copies viable. That's actually very reasonable.
Yeah. And so another reason why you do this spreadsheet, so let's say you're going to release a big heavy book like this guy, and it happens to be, I don't know, in year 2 of a global pandemic,
Yes.
which is probably not actually going to get fixed in the U.S. for another year or more. Let's say that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Then you know those direct sales and distribution are less likely to be useful.
Yes.
And you know now, okay, this is the digital copies that I have to push right now, and then my physical copies will be profit once capitalism fails, basically. Wait,
Yes.
Shit. Oh no. Damn.
Okay. Now, so I've got this number here, and I could also take you over to this budget version, what was it? 10, 20, 30. 10, 20, 30. And then what did we say here? 40, 60, 80. Oh, geez. To cover the high budget version through Drive-Thru RPG, if we sold it for $40, we'd only need to sell 40,000 copies.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, just 40,000 to break even through Drive-Thru if we were selling it for $40, which is what most geeks will fucking tell me a book that size should cost. We would
It's
only
cool, though,
need to
'cause now-
sell 40,000.
So what's cool about that is that you can just start screen capping this and using that as an answer,
Yes. So
and then the block button.
at the physical version on Drive-Thru at $80 though, we'd only need to sell 1,194 to break even at the high budget version. And then the numbers here with distribution are much more bleak. You basically would only have 2 options available, and that would be the physical offset 2, which is the 1,000 copy, and then the 5,000 copy which is the offset 3. I would say that I guess you could theoretically do the physical offset 1 if you understand that you are going to have to recoup a lot of those sales through digital.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
And maybe you can.
And maybe you can, but you have to understand that that's the case. Now, real quick, because we've done these numbers and we've looked and we've seen, and we've got this big red block here that says we're not going to distribute this book and make the money that we would like to make the high budget version. It's not going to happen. Now let's look at our conservative numbers again. Now let's hypothetically say that I'm not getting paid up front and Philomena's not getting paid up front. So we're going to break this down, and now we know that our writing budget is 0. Our art budget, realistically, our art budget is we pay Francita a wage, which is hourly. It's not actually based on units of items. So let's say that this is 0, right? We don't have the ability to cover, we can't fake the offset printing and the POD printing rates. Those are there regardless. So we can't fix these. But we did shave off all of this rate for the hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know, if we go into our conservative budget sheet, and we know that we are selling for $40, $60, or $80, or $10, $20, $30 in digital. Let's see. And we know that shipping is already included in the prices of these. Okay, so hypothetically, we're not paying anyone up front. Everything comes in the back end. You'll notice that here, the digital versions, all of the digital versions, the recoup amount is 0. Because technically it doesn't cost us anything to make digital books.
Sure.
Like, to sell them, it doesn't cost us anything. If we're not paying ourselves, the production cost is 0.
Right.
Very simple. Obviously, this is a thought experiment. This is not something that you should be doing, but it is something worth considering and thinking about. Now, if I'm not paying anyone directly through through IPR, I can sell 321 copies of the print on demand, and I will break even without paying anyone. That'll cover the cost of the books that I printed. For distribution, I would need to print more copies. That's just how it is. With the offset version, direct, I would need to sell, and this is, offset, this is 500 copies? Yeah, it's 500 copies. So 500 copies, I would need to sell 163 direct or 290 through distribution. That would cover our print run. And that's for 500. For 1,000, I would need to sell 201 copies direct or 357 distribution. Now, obviously, these numbers are higher. The reason is because we bought 1,000 books, where the additional budget there comes in the form of an additional 500 books. But you'll notice that the numbers aren't that different. It's 163 versus 201, or 290 versus 357. The big difference is 500 extra books. We have 500 more books in our inventory.
Yeah.
So that's more potential sales down the line. If you only have 500 copies and you sell 290 through distribution, you only have 210 copies left. That's the limit of your profit as far as physicals go.
Right.
Whereas in this case, you have 357 sales through distribution, and you still have 650 copies left to sell at conventions and direct through IPR or whatever. You have that potential if you can demand that rate. If you can get people to buy your book, then that's how many you need to sell. Now, the other important thing to consider here is, like I said, all of the digitals here, the production cost is 0 because it technically doesn't cost you anything to sell a copy digitally. You don't have to pay for that bandwidth or anything like that. It's just there. So basically, every digital sale goes towards your budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big deal. Like if you look at how much you need to spend in order to have these copies, like this is $8,270 with drive-through at $30. That's basically $20. I know that I can break that down. I can look at $8,270 divided by $20, and I know through drive-through I basically would need to sell about 413 copies in order to recoup the whole print run. And that's just through digital. That's not even selling a single physical copy, which is the point of having those physical copies.
Right.
But obviously, I'm not considering my own pay here. But that's kind of, in a way, it's okay if you are your own business person because you know that the profit is going directly to you.
Yeah.
So that's how budgeting works. I don't know if there's anything else I can address here, but I think that this does a pretty good job of calculating and everything. I think that y'all should be able to work with this. Does anyone have any questions? How much would you need to pay yourself? That's this rate here, the writing and editing. If I'm doing a 5 cents a word, or my top tier budget is 10 cents a word here, then I know that I need to pay myself $10,000 or $20,000 in order to make that worth my time.
Cool. You should do that.
That's what we did for iHunt.
Oh.
We actually did that.
I don't know how money works. That's why you make the spreadsheet.
I made the spreadsheet, yeah. No, we didn't pay ourselves up front for iHunt because we wrote it, we just did it. And I did all of the art myself. So basically, this was in that case. I didn't have the money to pay myself, and so it wasn't really factored into the budget.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason we were able to do a print run is because the game did so well.
Yeah.
We were able to pay ourselves and then some, which is good. Yeah, the break-even is the break-even rate is if you are paying yourself and you're putting it into this side. So let's say 01 and 02 here. Then the break-even rate assumes that you are paying yourself if you put money into there, or whoever. Whatever you're paying your writers, it gets calculated into your break-even rate. That will auto-calculate over here. You do want to pay yourself, and you do want to budget to pay yourself, especially if you're doing a Kickstarter. Put your own fucking wages into that Kickstarter. Absolutely do that. If somebody does a Kickstarter and in their budget breakdown they do not pay themselves, I will not back it. Because at that point what they're doing is, for one, they're exploiting their own labor, which is kind of gross. And for another, they aren't being compensated. So I don't know that they're going to have the time to do the job. If they're not being compensated, then they're doing it as a spare time gig. And we don't know that that's going to work. So it's no guarantee.
And also, when you see a Kickstarter where they don't tell you how much they're paying themselves or whatever, there's the chance that that's because they're just going to move money around and then everything disappears.
Yeah. So absolutely pay yourself. And if you're not paying yourself as a part of your budget, then it tells me that you are doing this as a labor of love, which always takes a back seat to paying the bills. And it's a huge red flag. Correct, Dwam. Do not pay yourself. Don't do it. You have to pay yourself. You have to pay yourself, and you have to be very clear about that. Because it's a thing of faith. If you're not paying yourself, then you're not taking it very seriously. That used to be the standard for things like Kickstarters. And it ended badly for a lot of those people. So this is your spreadsheet. This is your conservative budget. This is your bigger budget. And this is the things that it takes to make and publish a game from start to finish. These are the basic expenses. In Savage Garden, I'm probably going to be adding more budgeting to the advertisement, for example. Same with Flatpak. If I were doing this myself, I would probably be thinking about that a lot. How much am I going to put towards banners? How much am I going to put towards streaming? That sort of thing. And it's kind of a crapshoot. It's very scary, but do factor in those things.
And this is a chance to be more honest with yourself than you might have been.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be discouragement.
No.
Should be.
This should be grounding.
Materialism, right?
Yeah, it's materialist. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Marx would be very, very, very fond of you paying yourself and being clear with your numbers up front.
Yes, he doesn't want you to exploit yourself.
No, bullshit. No self-exploitation. Don't beat yourself up. And if anyone is like, well, why are you budgeting to pay yourself? Like, they're not the customer that you want. You absolutely do not want them.
And here's the thing: if you put numbers like this out in front of people and they tell you, it should be $40, you don't want them in your economy. You don't want them in your world.
Oh, and here's a fun secret. As far as those people go and like the $40 or whatever. Yes, if I sell a copy for $40, I need to sell 15,000 copies to break even, right? Right? We've acknowledged that. So why would I sell a copy for $40? Well, that's a good question. If you've got a couple of extra boxes and you're at a convention and you need cash for lunch to cover your team lunch at Gen Con, and you don't have the liquid cash because you put it all in the bank yesterday and it's not cleared, sell it for $40. Sell it for fucking $20. It doesn't matter. Because you paid for the bulk shipment. You paid for the print run. In the case of POD, if you bought 250 copies, you bought 250 copies. It doesn't really matter what you sell the individual unit for. These are basic MSRP prices. Please feel free to do sale prices. Even if it would sell the individual unit at a loss, you are still recouping part of your budget. Even though you are making less money than the individual copy cost you to print, it still does give you some sort of that money back. If you think about it hypothetically, if you sold, like in this case, let's see, we've got distribution of, we've got 1,000 copies, and we know that we have to sell 744 copies in order to break through distribution, right? 744 copies. You have about 250 copies left. What if you sell those for like $10 each? It's a stupid amount. Like I would never encourage that. But then you still have, 250 copies at $10 each. That's still $2,500 in your pocket. Now, yes, you do definitely want more than that if you can do it. But selling those occasional copies is okay. It's all right to do sales.
And the other thing is, when you know these sorts of numbers, you know how many copies you can comfortably give away.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, please give away copies. Like, give review copies. If there's a designer that you want to see talk about it, like an influencer, as the case may be, give them a copy. Just give them a fucking copy.
You can't pay those streamers to play your game, but maybe you can send them each a copy.
Yes.
And some swag.
Absolutely. Give them away for presents. Like, you've got a friend who, is an RPG fan or whatever, or they've got a kid who wants to learn how to play RPGs. Give them your fucking game. Just do it. You've got the copies.
Yeah.
Don't be stingy with that shit, especially because any given one of those people could end up being a fan for life.
On a related note, read the book Welcome to the Industry, You're Fucked.
Welcome to the Music Business, You're Fucked by Martin Atkins. Let me actually pull that up real quick.
His philosophy on giving away swag and giving away stuff is actually really important.
It's brilliant.
Yes, of course, complimentary copies to your collaborators, if they'll take them. Some people don't want them.
Yes, please give away collaborator copies if you can. In fact, let me see if it is available. Oh, shit. I can actually give you guys a free copy right now. If you're interested in this business, like if you're interested in producing games on a DIY level, read this fucking book. Read the book. It's short, and it's called Welcome to the Music Business, You're Fucked. You can also get a physical copy. You can get it through like Amazon and all kinds of shit like that. I have the physical copy. It's a very short book. The pages are like maybe a paragraph or two each. It is basically tips and tricks for being a DIY publisher. Martin Atkins is the former drummer for Killing Joke, Public Image Limited. He started the band Pigface. He's got a lot of platinum records on his wall. He owns a business that is that sells records to this day, which nobody can fucking do. And he's brilliant. He is a genius. I learned like everything I know about DIY publishing from people like him. And
he's just the nicest old guy.
He's amazing. He's an amazing human being. You can find he actually does lectures. He's also a college professor, and he does lectures about the music business and like touring and stuff. And they all fucking apply to tabletop role-playing game publishing. Period. I'm actually
groupies.
Yeah, fewer groupies.
Fewer
but
groupies.
In his part of the business, there aren't really many because it's just
true.
indie industrial.
That's
like,
true.
yeah. So please read the book. Read the book. I strongly recommend it. It'll go really quick, and it's a fun read. It's funny. It's anecdotal, and it will teach you a lot. That said, we're up at the end of the hour. I've broken down Flat Pack. I've broken down Savage Garden. I've broken down what it means to not pay yourself and like look off of just profits. I think that I have explained the spreadsheet pretty effectively. Y'all can go make a copy of it to use yourself. And I hope that was informative. Did everyone learn something?
And if you use this, screen cap parts of it, nothing sensitive, but screen caps parts of it and tweet it at us.
Yeah.
So that people will see what we're doing and what we're making and what we're sharing, because I'm sure this will be useful to people other than you.
Oh, yeah.
All 12 of you. I know that you've got friends who need this just as much, so please go tell them.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hope, yeah, Ian said it was beneficial, so that's good. I'm willing to trust that Ian's experiences extend to everyone else. Okay, so, Law, we're at the end of our time. I know that I ranted pretty much constantly. Mina didn't get to talk as much, and Francita didn't get to talk as much, but I was rambling. Sorry.
Next stream, we tie you up.
It was very informative, and yeah, spreadsheets are great.
Yeah.
They are great.
No, they are. They help you visualize data, which is a big deal. And in this case, like I think that seeing this data like this and seeing what is viable and what isn't automatically helps you fuss it. Because if you're like, okay, so this is a little unrealistic for me. So what if I change my rate to 4 cents a word? And then you get to go in here and you get to look at what's different, like how many more copies or how many fewer copies you need to sell to break even. And you can really fuss those numbers. We have a Kickstarter coming up with the San Gennaro Co-op pretty soon where I used a system like this to calculate it, and it was easy to sort of present to people in such a way I can be like, this should be our base rate and this should be our stretch goal rate. And everyone was like, oh, okay. So, yeah. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Yeah.
We love all of you. I hope that you had a good time, and I hope you learned something. And let us know what other things you want us to break down, because honestly, I like talking about this stuff. Like, I like doing spreadsheets and explaining to you how to make it work. Yeah. So, have a good night. Love you.
I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
And